Okay, so this first video, we're going to do lessons 65, 66, 67, and 68 all together. And we are going to start actually with lessons 65 and 67. We're going to do those two at the same time, and then we'll do 66 and 68. 66 and 68 are pretty much the same thing, and 65 and 67 really go together. So we're going to do it that way. So 65 and 67 are both about prime factorization. So as to just review, prime numbers, we said, or we know from before, prime numbers are any number that is multiplied by 1 and itself. So nothing else goes into it except 1 and itself. For example, 5 is a prime number because it's only divisible by 1 and 5. Nothing else can be multiplied together to get you 5. And then a composite number is all the other numbers. So it has more than 2 factors. So then prime factorization is when we have a composite number written with its prime factors. And this will make sense once we get started. So there are 2 ways to do it. We're going to do by division, and then we're going to talk about the prime factorization tree. You can do it either way. You get the same answer no matter which method you choose. It's just up to you. Most people use the division or the factorization tree. So our first example, we have the number 60, and we're going to do it division first. So if we have the number 60, we're going to need to choose a prime number to divide it by, because we're trying to get the prime factorization. So those are going to be all prime numbers. Sorry, something just popped on my screen. I'm trying to get it to go away. So a good prime number to start with, or the most easiest we could do, is 2. Not go away. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started though. So we have 2. 2 divided by 60. And we know that 2 divides into 6 3 times, and then 0 would be 0. So we have 30. So then we need to divide 30 now by a prime number, and we'll just keep it by 2. So 2 is going to go into 3 once, which will give us 2. So we can actually do the full division. We're supposed to go into, but we can. And then 2 will go into 10 5 times. So then our answer up here is 15. So then we still have 15. We need to figure out whether 15 is a prime number or not. So 2 doesn't divide evenly into 15, but we know that 3 does. So 3 divided by 5 is actually 15, so that gives us 0. So now we have 5. We need to check and see if 5 is a prime number. 5 is a prime number because it'll go into itself only once. So our final answer is 1. So with division, we divide it down until our final answer is 1. And then our prime factorization is going to be the numbers we use to divide it by. So we divided it by 2, 2, 3, and 5. So our prime factorization is written 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. So the prime factorization of 60 is 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. So that's one way. The second way is a factorization tree. So we have 60, and we need to divide that out. So 2 numbers that are multiplied together that equal 60. And we just choose any 2 numbers. I'm going to go with 6 and 10. So then we know that 2 and 3 go into 6, and 2 and 5 divide into 10, and those are all prime numbers. Nothing else goes into them. So then this is our final prime factorization. Again, it's 2, 3, 2, 5. So we have 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. So this is our final answer. Again, you can do it either way. So a review with the division, you divide until you get 1, and then all the numbers you use to divide it by are your factorizations. Or you can set up a tree and just keep dividing it down or creating your tree until all of the remaining numbers are prime numbers. So we will try one more. All right, so first we're going to do our division, and this time we're going to use the number 32. So I have 32. We're going to divide 32 by 2. 2 goes into 3 once, and then 2 goes into 12 6 times. So then we're going to divide it now. We have the 16 was our answer, so we need to divide that. And 16, 2 divided by 16 is going to be 8, because it's actually evens out. So then our answer up there is 8, so then we're still not at 1. We got to keep dividing. 2 divides into 8 4 times. 2 times 4 is 8. And then 4 can be divided by 2 again. So it's 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Still not 1, so we need to divide it again. 2 can only divide into itself. So that's our final. So then we divided it by 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the prime factorization of 32 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which will be our final answer. And if we were going to do the tree, we know that 4 times 8 is 32. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. And then 2 times 2 is 4 again. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2's. So we have the same answer. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And that is all for basic prime factorization. So now on lesson 67, we use prime factorization to reduce fractions. So that's what we're going to do now. So our first example, they give us the fraction 125 over 1,000. So they want us to reduce 125 over 1,000, which is a really big number, and it could take us a while to do all that division. So instead, we're going to use prime factorization. So first, we're going to do the prime factorization of 125. So we know that 5 times 25 equals 125. 5 is a prime number. 5 times 5 goes into 25. So since 5 is a prime number, we are done. We got 3 5s. So we're going to write that over here. 5 times 5 times 5. And then now we need 1,000. So I'm going to use 200 times 5. And then 200 divides 40 times 5. And then 40 is 8 times 5. And then 8 is 2 times 4. And then 4 is 2 times 2. So we now have prime numbers ending on all of our wings or leaves or branches of our tree. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 5. So I'm going to go ahead and write that up here. 1, 2, 3 5s, and then 1, 2, 3 2s. 1, 2, 3. So now we have the prime factorizations of 125 and 1,000, and so we can use that to reduce that fraction. So if we look at it, we can go ahead and eliminate anything on the top and bottom that equals 1. So we have a 5 and a 5. That basically means 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And then we got another one, and another one. So we can bring the 1 all the way across because 1 times 1 times 1 is just 1. And then we have 2 times 2 times 2 down here, which is 8. So 125 over 1,000 reduced into its simplest form is 1/8. And then we're going to try one more. The other one is going to be 64 over 224. So we need to reduce 64 and 224. So we get our trees going here. We're going to do 64 first. So we know 8 times 8 is 64. And then 2 times 4 is 8 for both of them. And then 2 times 2 is 4 on both of them. So then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 2s on 64. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's the prime factorization for 64. And then now we're going to need to do it for 224. So 32 and 7 equal 224. We multiply 32 times 7. 7 is a prime number. Nothing else goes into it. And we know that 4 and 8 go into 32. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2s. And then our 7 still up there, times 7. All right, so then now we need to look and see what we can eliminate. We have a 2 and a 2, so that's 1. A 2 and a 2, that's 1. A 2 and a 2, that's 1. A 2 and a 2, that's 1. And then a 2 and a 2, that's 1. And then we have left a 2 and a 7, so those cannot be canceled out. So our final answer is 2/7. Right, so that's all of our prime factorization. So with our prime factorization, you can either do division, so you would divide your number and keep dividing it until you get 1, or you can use your prime factorization trees, so you just break it down until you get all prime numbers at the end, and then it would be written whatever times and all of the numbers are multiplied together. Excuse me. And then to use that to reduce large fractions, you would write the prime factorization of one number over the prime factorization of the other, and then look and see if any of them can be canceled out to equal 1, and then multiply straight across what you have left, and that will give you your final reduced fraction. So that's 65 and 67. Now we're going to do 66 and 68, which are multiplying or dividing mixed numbers. Right. So 66 is on multiplying mixed numbers, and 68 is on dividing mixed numbers. So there are 3 steps to solve both of these problems. So when we are multiplying, the first thing we do is to put it in the correct shape. So we have our fractions or our mixed numbers, and we need to put them in the correct shape. And it's the same when we divide them. Both of them need to be in the correct shape. The second is then, since we're multiplying, we're either going to multiply, and then the division is we split the second and multiply. And then the third step is to simplify. So our steps to multiply is we correct the shape, then we multiply, and then we simplify. Our steps for division is to correct the shape, flip the second and multiply, and then simplify. So here's what that looks like. So our first example, we have 2 2/3 times 4. So we need to put the mixed number into a fraction. And to do that, we would multiply 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So we have 8 thirds. And that would be 4 over 1. So we have 8 thirds times 4 over 1 becomes 32 thirds. And then we would need to turn that back into a mixed number because it's an improper fraction. And so if we divided that out, that would be 10 and 2/3 would be our final answer. We'll do another one. The second one is 2 1/2 times 1 1/3. All right, so we're going to change both of our mixed numbers, which means we're going to correct their shape. So 2 times 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So that's 5 over 2 times 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 thirds. So we have 5 over 2 times 4 over 3. And that's going to give us 20 over 6. And then we divide that out and turn it back into a mixed number. It's going to be 3 2/6. And then our last step would be simplify. 2/6 can be simplified into 1/3. So our final answer is 3 1/3. So we cannot leave it as 3 2/6 because that's not reduced all the way. All of your answers have to be completely reduced. All right? So that was all to multiply. So then now we're going to need to use the same steps to divide. All right, so then our first one is going to be 2 2/3 divided by 4. Yes. All right, so we already had the 2 2/3 into its correct shape. We did that earlier, and it was 8 thirds. And this is 4 over 1, but since we're dividing, we need to flip it. So it would be 1/4 times 1/4. And that's going to be 8/12, which is equal to 2 thirds. And then our next one is going to be 2 2/3 divided by 1 1/2. So we need to turn these into fractions. So this one was 8 thirds. And that would be divided by 2, and 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 halves. Remember, we're going to flip the second, so that actually becomes 8 thirds times 2 thirds. It's going to be 16 ninths. And then we need to turn that back into a mixed number. It's going to be 1 7 ninths is our final answer. So when multiplying or dividing mixed numbers, first we need to put them in the correct shape, which means we need to turn them into improper fractions. And then we would go ahead and straight multiply if we're multiplying, or we would flip the second to multiply if we're dividing. And then we would make sure that our answer is in its simplest form. And that is all for those 4 lessons.